So Grace is bringing up a really important point, a sticky point for a lot of people, sources. She has no problem knowing who she wants to write about, the painter and poet Dante Gabriel Rossetti. The question is getting the information she needs. So she's already started with Britannica.com, a very good, reliable starter source. She's looking at HarvardArtMuseums.com, so that is Harvard University's art museum, so you can know it's a serious professional source. Interestingly, I would have expected Harvard to have a .edu as the suffix on their web address. Usually that's the case, but in this case they decided to go with .com. Met Museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, also a very reliable, highly authoritative source. They went with a .org. So those are all very reliable, but she's not finding the kind of information that she can really, that's resonating with her and that's giving her what she's hoping to have. So what does she look for? In my explanation about finding reliable sources, I said, don't use .com. That's a general rule of thumb, but obviously not true when it comes to something like Harvard's art museums. And I said, look for .edu, but that's going to be pretty limited in this case. So what other options does Grace have? Let's look at some. So one would be to look for what's called a monograph on Dante Gabriel Rossetti. Monographs are comprehensive studies of a single artist. I didn't mean to do a general search. See, that was a general search. It gives you a million things. It's great for pulling up images. But if I narrowed it in and found monograph, I might be able to find some scholarly books that are in-depth studies. Now, Grace might not have enough time for reading a whole monograph at this point. So she might want to be thinking about articles and videos that are going to get her brain percolating. Well, interestingly, if I back button and we go to that general search, that an intelligent way to use Wikipedia is to look at it not as your kind of the source you're going to rely on, but as a possible place to find leads to other sources. So Grace might look at the Wikipedia page, and it's always fine, take a read of that to get an overview of kind of big issues, but knowing that as an open source compendium, you can't count on the reliability of the information. It can be patchy, and sometimes it can actually be misleading or misinterpreted, because no one is sort of putting their name in and saying, I stand behind this. This is what I stake my scholarly reputation on. But it is a kind of a popular place where people come together and they share some of what they know. And in the process, you can sometimes find monographs like books. Interestingly, these are all the books that he wrote. None are monographs, which makes me think, oh, well, I'm not sure how reliable this page will be for in-depth work. If I go down to the references, I don't find a monograph, but can I look for some reliable possible articles or videos? How would I know if they're reliable? Well, here's a link to the Poetry Foundation, which is, I think it's a .edu, or it's a .org. It is a very reputable organization that is dedicated to the preservation and education around poetry. Let's see, is it a .edu? I'm just curious. Where'd you go? It's a .org. So they also have a page that's going to emphasize the writing side. And one of the difficulties of working with sources is that it can get overwhelming really fast. And you need to be able to kind of look at a source and kind of get a sense of whether that's reliable and relevant. And frankly, that comes a little bit with experience. So you can ask me about specific sources, but I can definitely see that, oh, look here, some things are from the actual Rossetti archive, or you can find actual letters. And I can look at other sources. BBC is probably a reliable source, usually does a good job. You might want to go to the Rossetti archive, but it might be actually too much in depth. So what you might do here then is say, okay, I'm going to go to DVC library, because your library is actually curated in the sense that, meaning that librarians pay attention to what sources are reputable and reliable and make an effort to kind of compile a good base of sources for you to use. So Dante Gabriel Rossetti, are there any articles that are going to really kind of take a useful angle? Let's find out what comes up. Okay. So here's one in French. Well, that's not going to help you that much unless you speak French. It's probably a good one, though. So the paradox with sources is you usually find things that are kind of really general or too specific. And that was the case in the Wikipedia. If you go back, this one is about John Wesley and the Anglo-Catholic revival. So that's going to be about religious ideas that were part of the context shaping Rossetti's work. Might be helpful, might be way too specific. A good general one, though, is here, Jennifer Meager, the Pre-Raphaelites. This is at the Met. This is the essay that their curator, Jennifer Meager, has written, not about that specific artist, but actually about the group and the context. This is probably going to be very, very helpful. A very good historical context source. If we go back to the library, what you're going to find is that many of these articles are about a specific theme in specific artworks, as in this one, peer-reviewed, so you can read it online, but it's about specific paintings with certain ideas, quoting from Rossetti's own words for the artwork. Here is a book that is available online that is a monograph, well, not a monograph, it's actually putting Rossetti in a lineage that goes to modern art, but it's poetry focused. So you have to really sift. But here's this is a promising looking video because it's the BBC. They tend to do a great job. So the art of this is to look and say, wow, does this look super specific? It's about 3 different artists. And if you want to, you can click on it and just briefly check if it's helpful, and don't waste too much time on articles that are too arcane for you. Your job is to just find 1 or 2 that really help you. And so this one has an abstract. That's great, because you see, oh, he's actually emphasizing a poet from back in the 15th century that was interesting to Rossetti. I'm not really dealing with the poetry, I'm dealing with the painting. Let's move on. So this is where refining your search can be really helpful. What if I don't just search for Dante Gabriel Rossetti? That's pretty broad. There's a lot about him. What if I search for Ophelia? Maybe that's the painting that Grace wants to do, in which case, oh, she can go to the Tate Britain Museum. And in which case, she can also look more closely in the DVC library and find an article about that particular painting and its patron that is available online. So you have access to the JSTOR database through the library. And so there it is. You have it as a PDF. So now you have a very focused article by an art historian in an art history magazine. Burlington Magazine is a well-established art history magazine that's been in publication since about the 1920s. And this article is devoted to 3 specific things. And these kind of very focused articles are often very helpful. Even if you're not writing about this particular theme of Hamlet and Ophelia, learning about the patron and learning about what the art historian has dug up about this can often really help you get insight into the particular paintings that interest you and really give you a lot of traction. So I'm hoping this is a good start. Let me know if any of this works. Let me know what questions come up.